40 years ago, a college All-American and future NBA star died. The circumstances surrounding his death mysterious. His fans erupted with anger at the news coverage. We'll meet the reporter who broke the story and was the target of that anger. Was his contract not renewed, or did he decide to retire? He'll tell us why he's no longer at the anchor desk after 31 years on this edition of News Classroom. Hello, I'm Steve Bowers.
And I'm Steve Beverly, and welcome to this edition of the News Classroom. And Steve, in our 9 months of doing this show, we've covered a number of different stories, from how people are covering wildfires in the South to, if you think about it, how Gen Z and the millennials in our country, where they're getting news today. But on this edition, we're going to go back in time to a sports story that became a tragedy, and then it turned into a national news story.
The name Len Bias was big basketball news in 1980. He stayed home and played for the University of Maryland. He became a leading scorer in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and a major pro career with the Boston Celtics was ahead for him. But he never experienced that career.
Good afternoon, I'm Bob Dolman.
I'm Andrea Ruin. A local success story took a tragic turn this morning. Len Bias, the Maryland University basketball star on his way to becoming a world champion Boston Celtic, died of an apparent heart attack today at Leland Memorial Hospital in Prince George's County. Dave Statter is at the College Park campus of the University of Maryland with this live update.
Andrea, this is Washington Hall. This is where Len Bias collapsed early this morning in this dormitory here on the University of Maryland campus. He was talking to some friends early this morning when he collapsed. Doctors say he died of a heart attack, cardiopulmonary arrest, but what that means or what caused that heart attack, we don't know. And at this point, we don't know what the real cause of death for this 22-year-old rising star of the Maryland basketball team and eventually the Boston Celtics. Bias was rushed to Leland Hospital early this morning by ambulance. Following him to the hospital were friends and relatives and fellow basketball players from the University of Maryland campus. A lot of people came from the nearby Adelphi community. Bias went to Northwestern High School not far from the hospital. Many of his friends showed up at the hospital, obviously very upset over this news and this latest turn and the end of this tragic career for the University of Maryland basketball star. From what we understand, CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, was started right away as soon as Bias collapsed by some people that were with him in the room here at Washington Hall. And Prince George's County ambulance took him to the hospital, and Dr. Edward Wilson of Leland Hospital worked on Bias.
At this point, it's cardiorespiratory arrest. It's now a coroner's case. The body will be sent to Baltimore. Further information will come out of that department. We don't know what caused the death. He was circulating blood well, so it looks like there was no internal bleeding. So it had to be somewhere in the primary pump area, which is the heart, and that was the part that was not working.
A morgue wagon took the body to the medical examiner's office in Baltimore, where an autopsy will be performed. The cause of the death not determined. Only thing we know is that Bias's heart stopped. Prince George's County homicide detectives have been investigating this death, just a routine death investigation at this point. They came to Washington Hall here at the University of Maryland to talk to friends and talk to anybody who knows about Bias's whereabouts.
And we now have the reporter who was on top of what became really the biggest sports story and one of the biggest sports tragedies in American college history. And then at the same time, it became a major national news story in the process. Dave Statter is here. Dave, it's so good to have you with us.
It's a pleasure. Good to see you guys.
Well, Steve Bowers is going to start us out as we go back on this journey from 40 years ago.
So many things to reconstruct in a way before we get to what is an amazing ending of this story. Reads like a novel now, a spy novel or something, Dave. It's a pretty exciting story. But you get a call at 6:45 in the morning, says Len Bias has been taken to Leland, and you go to work.
That's pretty much it. I tried to verify it because it sounded so shocking. I was not the biggest basketball fan, not much of a basketball fan at all, but I knew who Len Bias was. If you lived in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, you knew Len Bias at the University of Maryland. And I knew that he had been drafted 2 nights earlier. So when I got that first call from one of my old fire buddies, I had been a volunteer firefighter and dispatcher and an early medic in Prince George's County, Maryland, where this occurred. I said, huh? And I couldn't believe it. And I called my old dispatch center, and all I said to the person who I knew would recognize my voice, she used to work with me, I said, Linda, is it true? She said yes and hung up on me. She almost lost her job over that, but it was verification. I called our assignment desk, and I went to Leland Hospital just south of the University of Maryland campus.
Dave, when you get a call like that, regardless of what the situation is, how much does the light bulb go off upstairs that this may be bigger than what the initial tip is telling you that it is?
I knew it was going to be big because of who Len Bias was and what everyone in the Washington area thought about him. He was a sports god, if you will, and just a remarkable player and well thought of, and of course being drafted by the Boston Celtics. So I knew it was going to be big. I didn't quite understand at that point how big. And that's as the story evolved, we figured it all out.
Dave, you say that in recounting all of this, that you get these 2 tips, and then you call the morning assignment editor, who doesn't really believe the story yet, but he goes to work on it, and so it quickly picks up steam.
Yeah, a man named Doug Edwards was working our assignment desk, did the mornings. And I called Doug, and he was a little bit skeptical, as you can imagine anybody was, because this healthy athlete 2 nights ago we saw, during the draft process, it was shocking. What he did first was he called James Brown, as many of us know as JB, who's on CBS Sports, was on Fox Sports. He was our weekend sports guy. And he called JB at home, a former basketball player himself. And I understand that JB's first call was to the Boston Celtics legend, Red Auerbach, who I believe was the general manager then. And he called Red and said, hey, you know that Len Bias got in the hospital. It was the first that Red had heard of it. It came from JB that morning. So, I don't know any of this till much later. I'm still driving to Leland, and they were smart. And, an assignment editor thinking knew me well enough to know that I'm not the biggest basketball fan. And he sent one of our PAs, production assistants in the newsroom that morning, a guy named Mike Bratton, who was a University of Maryland graduate, knew all about University of Maryland basketball, and he figured he could help me. And Mike later had a long career as a writer at WUSA Channel 9, where I was working. But Mike said he was the only one in the newsroom who knew where Leland Hospital was, in fact.
At this point in time, how much or what led you to the tip that there may be something more than just he's going to the hospital for something, that there may be something, namely drugs, involved?
You have to put yourself back into 1986. We were on the air first, but soon, of course, we're joined by every other station in town, radio, TV, lots of cameras, networks are showing up there. Well, I knew I was right on the tip because I could see outside the emergency room that we didn't have announcement of death yet, but we could see all these very tall young men standing outside. And later on, before they told us that he had died, we could see the pounding on the wall. But none of us, we're all talking among ourselves. And I'm thinking, am I right about this? At least, and I'm getting more indication than I am, but we're all talking. Not a person mentioned drugs as a possibility. It never entered our mind back in 1986. I think today it would have been among the top things we thought about. We thought about Marfans. What I didn't know is that the University of Maryland, having lost an athlete previously, had done screening for Marfans. And so that was not really the issue here. But we didn't think about any of this. It wasn't until I got off my noon live shot from Washington Hall. We had moved from Leland to Washington Hall now. That's where Len Bias, in a sense, died. It was in the dorm there with the other basketball players. Was not revived from there. It wasn't until then I get my first tip. I'm off the air and my assignment desk says, call this person. The person they want me to call is a friend of mine. They say they know something about Len Bias. I can't imagine how this person knows it. Now, understand this person has since passed away, but they've always told me, do not tell anyone that I was the source on this. But what they told me is that they found traces of cocaine involvement in the chemistry that they tested, whether it was urinalysis or blood. And I said, well, that's interesting. And when he told me why he knew, it made perfect sense. So that was the first source. Source number two, as soon as I get off, I'm trying to call my mentor, the late Mike Buchanan, who helped get me the job at Channel 9, coming from radio to TV. And he was one of the best reporters ever, one of the best journalists I'd ever worked with. And I called Mike. I know he'd be able to help me in finding other sources. He's trying to call me. He's got the same information from a police source. And I turn around and there's JB over there. And I didn't know JB that well then. I know him pretty well now. And I walk over to him and I said, JB, I'm sure you're not going to like this, but we're hearing that cocaine was involved. And JB didn't say a word. He's a big guy, remember? And I could see the anger growing in him. And I'm not clearly understanding, is he mad at me? And I figured it out that he's just mad that this life was thrown away. He just sees, he doesn't say a word, he turns and walks away. Next thing I see him is across the way at the front entrance to Washington Hall. He's talking to a couple of the basketball players. A few minutes later, he walks back and he looks at me and he says, they were doing cocaine. That was our third source. Three different sources. One from my friend who had nothing to do with law enforcement or the players, Mike Buchanan from police, and JB from the players.
And you're on the noon news, and nothing has been mentioned about drugs until that. And so
we don't mention it even on the noon news. We get the tip after the noon, but we don't break in. We don't do anything.
The next step in this thing is you get these tips, and now we're on the way to the 5 o'clock news. So what happens?
We went back to the station. Our news director wanted to meet with me and Mike Buchanan. JB was still out there. And a guy named Dave Pierce, wonderful guy. He was the one who hired me. And it gave me a lot of leeway. I remember I've only been there like 9-10 months maybe at Channel 9. So I'm a rookie reporter for them. And we sit in there with Mike and me and Dave Pierce. He wants to know what we have. I explained what I just explained to you, the three different sources. Mike explained what he heard from the cops. I told him what JB specifically heard, all those details. And he says, okay, we'll go with it at 5 o'clock. And, but he said, the only unanswered question is who is going to report it at 5 o'clock? And Mike Buchanan, who died a couple of years ago, a great friend, looked at Dave Pierce and said, Dave will do it. Very generous guy, enormously generous.
He stopped breathing, and one of those two players, Long or Greg, we understand, performed CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, to try to get Bias breathing again, his heart going. But of course, that did not happen, and paramedics and doctors were unable to do so. Once again, 22-year-old Len Bias, star forward from the University of Maryland basketball team, and eventually it was hoped the Boston Celtics, is now dead.
The public, for the most part, did not like that we reported that. Our phones started ringing immediately. People saying it's too soon and bad at us, threatening us, all kinds of things. The phones rang at least till 2 o'clock in the morning. When we did our 11 o'clock show later, our 11 o'clock news director, Bill Raymond, got on the phone to help the assignment desk and stayed till between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So we do the 5, Mike does the 6. We both do the 11 at various aspects, and Mike had much more detail at 11 o'clock, talking about the mound of cocaine we heard about, Bias supposedly saying when they told him to slow down, I'm a horse, I can take it, all of that. He had all those details the first day. That's how good a reporter he had. And Mike is listening to the local sports program by a guy named Ken Beatrice called Sports Call on WML radio, which was the #1 radio station at the time, an AM station, by the way. And Mike says, turn on MAL. And I could hear Mike was not happy. Mike was a very easygoing guy. Did not get mad often. And I could say something was wrong. I turned it on. And his guest, Ken Beatrice's guest, is our competitor at Channel 4, the sports director, known for the sports machine, George Michael. And George was not happy with us reporting it. He said, it's too soon. They should have held the news. They shouldn't have done this. And Mike says to me after I hear this, get me on WMAL. And we went over I called in. I first called the producer, and he said, "Yeah, come on in. And we don't have much time because they're off at midnight." And we went in toward the last probably quarter hour of his show, and we talked about it, mostly Mike talking, and we defended why we did it. But George was gone by then, but it was just us. It was interesting.
David, looking back at it, any second guessing or second thoughts after it was all over with?
No, it's just a different time. I kind of I feel for the audience that felt, that was upset with us. I kind of long for those days, in a sense. Today, if this story happened today, there would be video. Before I even got that tip from a firefighter friend of mine, there would have been video on TikTok of the body coming out of Washington Hall with him pounding on his chest. And there would have been judgments made by everybody, chiming in, very judgmental about what happened. There's a kind of sweetness to the fact that they were mad at us for getting the information on too soon. I kind of long for that a little bit. I didn't like the death threats. I got 2 in the mail, one where people shot bullet holes. One was a full-length target, had 2 different sized bullet holes in it, according to the police, and they drew curly hair on the top of it, which was kind of what I had when I had hair. And it was kind of interesting, but without the death threats. Today, though, anybody in the news media gets death threats all the time. It was a little bit unusual then. But I didn't understand it completely at the time, and I felt a little bit upset about it. But now I look back when it almost longed for those days.
This is a story that for those of us who experienced it, and we were connoisseurs of news, or we were in the media at that point in time, it was one of those stop the clock moments. And I really appreciate that you were able to have some time with us to go through that journey once again. Remember, it is Statter, STATTER, 911.com. And Dave, I hope we can bring you on here again to talk about other things.
Would love to at any time. I really enjoyed it, guys.
Thanks a lot.
It's his will. We are dedicating this newscast to the man who has given more than 30 years to this station and community.
Mental health and learning disorders don't discriminate. 17 million American children and adolescents are struggling. Help the Child Mind Institute change children's lives. Visit childmind.org.
Well, some people cover the news and others become part of it. For the next 30 minutes, against his will, we are dedicating this newscast to the man who has given more than 30 years to this station and community.
You're watching Fox 56 10 o'clock news with Marvin Bartlett.
January 2nd, 1995, a brand new television station, a brand new newscast, and at the anchor desk, a young journalist who had no idea he'd still be there 30 years later. A West Virginia native with degrees from Marshall University and Ohio University, Marvin arrived in Lexington in 1987. By 1995, he was helping launch the Fox 56 10 o'clock news.
He was the face and voice of news in the Kentuckiana region for more than 3 decades.
It's been quite a run here, 31 years. It's been exciting. People say don't be sad because something's ending, be happy that it happened. I think it can be both. I'm a little sad that it's ending, but certainly concentrating on all the good events that we've been part of over the years.
He was like a member of the family for viewers who trusted his reporting.
Good evening, I'm Marvin Bartlett.
And I'm Kristen Flum.
Police arrested 23-year-old Shannon Gilday in Richmond this morning. His car has also been found outside of Madison County, but police will not say where.
Now he's no longer there. People who watched him for years want to know why.
I love you all, everybody. Love you.
And the man who has just stepped away after more than 3 decades on the anchor desk in the Kentuckiana region is with us now, Marvin Bartlett. Marvin, it is so good to see you, and we'll get into whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing, but nice to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Let me start this off before we get too far into this. There have been differing accounts on this. One is that you are retiring after 31 years at the anchor desk, and the other one is that you had your contract not renewed. Which is the correct one, or is it both?
It's the second one is correct. I did not plan to retire quite yet. My contract was not renewed. So people are wishing me congratulations and happy retirement. And I say, no, I'm just between opportunities.
Marvin, what's that like then when you had no idea this was coming, right? You expected the contract to be renewed.
I did because I had worked at my current station for 32 years and was actually there the first day they did a newscast. Wow. So, I did feel quite a connection to the place and very loyal to the place. But I also probably should have seen it coming because these mergers and these scale backs have been happening all around the country. The company I was with, Nexstar, has done this to veteran anchors in Chicago, Los Angeles, throughout the country. So I probably should have seen it coming, but I guess I was close enough to my end of my career that I would see it through.
When something like this happens, I mean, let's face it, whether you expect it or don't expect it, and most people don't when it comes, emotionally, what's it like to get this news, we're not going to renew your contract?
Well, it's a gut punch at first, and you go through the roller coaster of emotions. You start out very sad, mad, bitter even. I think my wife probably took it harder than I did. And then you're just kind of worried about what's next. And now I'm at the position where I think it's going to turn out maybe to be a blessing, and I'm anticipating what's next. So it is that whole roller coaster. The business has changed so much. I really don't know where the station would be in a year if I had signed for another year. So I have told people, maybe I was given that push I needed to get off a sinking ship, to put it bluntly.
Were you given any rationale when they talked to you about it, Marvin?
No, it was, HR has this very standard way they do things, and I don't think it's to engage in any discussion. But I know it's financial. I was the longest employee there. I made the most money probably in the newsroom, and I'm not being replaced. They're going to a one anchor format. So they're just going to save my salary. I really think that's the main reason. And it was the decision was not made locally. No one I worked with in Lexington would have wanted this to happen. I don't believe it was made by people who just see you as a name on a spreadsheet in the corporate office in Dallas, Texas.
At least it wasn't like that Morgan and Morgan commercial where they have the barbershop quartet comes in and delivers the news and that you're going to be escaped and you're not going to get out of the building without an escort.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. I was given 60 days notice. I was expected to fill out my contract and wanted to finish strong. I didn't want people to treat me any differently, but it was an awkward and odd period because I felt like a lot of coworkers didn't know what to say to me. And I was kind of like the Walking Dead in some ways. So that's an odd period for anyone to go through.
At what point then do you start turning thoughts to the future?
Oh, immediately. I mean, I made it known right away that, my time is about to end here and I'm not ready to retire and I'm looking for new opportunities. And I have been networking and having coffee and lunches with people every day that I think might be able to keep their ears open for me. I have nothing concrete yet, but I've had discussions with some folks that give me hope that something's going to open up soon. Yeah.
So it's a reflection, I guess, of what's happened to this business.
It absolutely is. Yeah, it is. And I think we're in that position right now where nobody knows what's going to happen next. The model has changed so much and the focus is now on streaming news and going away from the traditional newscasts that I grew up with and know how to do. And I understand that. I understand why companies are trying to figure out what's next, but I don't think cutting all of your veteran people is the right way to go.
Now at 4, 5, and 6, and some cities they're starting news as early as 3 o'clock now.
Yeah. Right.
What do you think the ultimate impact of that has been on the quality of local news?
Oh, it's been detrimental, and burnout is a real thing. And we're burning out reporters who are in their mid-20s who are just saying, this is not for me. This is too much. And, one of the things I've been offered and I've thought about, and I have done this in the past, is teaching. And I wrestle with the idea of encouraging young people to go into this. We have to get a handle on that. If we're going to require this much more work out of people, then we need to give them more resources and put more bodies in the newsrooms.
But it looks as if the industry is going the other way as far as its overhead.
It is. It is. It's coming, and, I think we all can agree. I'm afraid that what's happening to local TV news is what happened to newspapers. They're just not anything close to what they used to be.
When you look back on it, Marvin, what are the highlights? Or you look at this 30-plus year career, and that is a great privilege to be in a community that many years. What do you look back on with satisfaction?
Well, it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I decided in a high school career day that I wanted to do this. So I've been blessed to do the only thing I wanted to do, the only thing I have any ability to do. Some might even argue that, but I'm not an athlete. I'm not skilled at carpentry or plumbing, or don't hunt and fish, and that's why I'm having trouble in forced retirement. But it's all I ever wanted to do. So I feel blessed that I was able to do what I wanted to do, and do it at a time when I feel like it was kind of at its heyday. And in my most recent years, I kind of pivoted into my own feature reporting segment, which was called Spirit of the Bluegrass, which was kind of based on my love of watching Charles Kuralt as a child. And I got to do that the way I wanted to do it. And so there are a lot of things I'm grateful for and thankful for and feel blessed about. I just didn't want to stop yet.
Well, I want to tell you, Marvin, we are most appreciative for you sharing some time with us. This is not an easy thing to talk about. I understand that. But at the same point in time, wishing you the very best as far as what may be ahead. And I know you don't know what that is right now, but wishing you that it's going to be something even better.
And I have faith that it will be. I don't know. You're right. I don't know what the future holds, but I have faith it's going to be good.
And Steve and I will be right back in just a moment to recap this week's News Classroom and also preview our next show.
A flu vaccine now can save a lot of misery later. Older adults, young children, or those with certain medical conditions are most at risk for severe illness. Protect yourself from flu's worst symptoms. Call the Jackson-Madison County Regional Health Department.
Well, Steve, we've had some interesting insights on this edition of News Classroom. We start out with a story like Len Bias and the tragic death that occurred 40 years ago, and really a lot of the lessons of what happened in journalism and the audience reaction, they're still very pertinent today.
They certainly are. And talk about the tone that has changed over the decades. That's a reflection of that. It's also a reminder of how important it is to have the right people that can get the right information from the right sources, Steve.
And Steve, Dave Statter really gave us a lesson in how things like that can transpire in a hurry. And you think about Len Bias being one of the biggest stars in all of sports, and then suddenly 2 days after he's drafted by the Boston Celtics, he's not with us any longer. And all of the controversy that surrounded the cocaine use. A couple of things that I want to add to that story. Number one, you had a situation where an investigation went into all of the surroundings of that death. That led to the athletic director resigning in that coming fall, and it also was the downfall of the head coach of the University of Maryland Terrapins, and that being Lefty Driesell, who resigned under fire because of investigation into potential drug and cocaine use on the team members of the University of Maryland in 1986. And Steve, we got some very honest answers that came from Marvin Bartlett about what's a tough situation, obviously, for him, in which his contract was not renewed after 31 years. And you think about that station is losing not just a face and voice, but a mentor to the young people who work at the station in Lexington, Kentucky.
It puts a real face on the upheaval that's being caused by changes in ownership and how this industry is structured, Steve. We're going to see more and more of it.
That's the real sad thing about it. And another sad thing for us is I'm just hearing the bell right now, and that means it's the end of this edition of News Classroom. Good night, Steve.
Good night, Steve, and good night from the News Classroom.